Christmas at Maple Creek is a pretty enjoyable, festive romance. I always love films that are about writers, if the protagonist is an author, because I obviously find there an element of relatability, but also I find it inspiring. And if I'm going through a period of writer's block, as I kind of am just now, it gives me a bit of inspiration. And the film itself, the narrative, which I'll talk about in a little bit of detail, but I won't give any spoilers, I thought was pretty reasonable. My only real complaint is that some of the dialogue was a little bit wooden, a little bit cheesy. It definitely needed a bit of fine tuning, but generally it was a good film. This was released originally in 2020, directed by McGuire, written by Scotty Mullen, and it stars Jeni Ross as our protagonist Diana, and she is a writer of your very cliche cheesy romance novels. And she decides to go to Maple Creek around Christmas time. Maple Creek is what actually originally inspired her to write her novels. It's where her novels are set. Maybe a slightly fabricated version of it. She does warp history a little bit, and she actually meets this character, Carter, who is a historian who has a bit of an issue with some of the changes in history that she makes. And needless to say, we have this classic clash between boy and girl that we often see in this kind of romantic Christmas film, and they're always at each other's throats, but then we see elements of sparks flying every now and then. And I think the on-screen chemistry between Jeni Ross and Jake Epstein, who plays Carter, worked very well. It was very pleasing to watch. The relationship that developed, it wasn't completely predictable. Obviously you could see certain directions it could potentially take, but I think that there were elements of surprise throughout. And needless to say, there are obstacles throughout it, not just with their relationship, friendship, whatever you want to call it, but also with them trying to get Maple Creek ready for Christmas, because they're putting on this big event to try and raise money because Maple Creek is really struggling. I should point out Maple Creek is a village. It's a pioneer village, and recently the visitors are more few and far between than they used to be. Financially, it's not doing very well, but there is the possibility that Diana, having set her novels there, could bring in a fan base to raise money. I liked Diana as a character. I thought her spoken grammar was pretty bad for somebody who writes for a living. If you end a sentence with "and I," it will give me hives. That's only a slight exaggeration. So again, a lot of the dialogue I think was not great. The delivery of the lines was absolutely fine. I have no problem with any of the acting. I just think the actual words spoken sometimes could have been a bit better. Definitely needed a little bit of fine tuning. But generally I found it to be quite pleasant. It's not the most Christmassy, but we do have Christmas elements, of course. Christmas trees. I loved some of the more traditional costumes that we saw, including one kind of traditional Santa Claus outfit that I won't say any more about, but I particularly enjoyed that. And there was one moment which genuinely made me well up. And for me, this defines the entire film. And it's where one of the characters is talking about Amy. And my love of this moment has nothing to do with her name, I promise. But I won't say what or why, just look out for the mention of the character Amy. And for me, that moment was the most moving moment in the entire film. And that moment I absolutely adored it. I thought any flaws that this film may have are completely brushed aside because of how perfect that moment was and how beautiful that message was. And I really adored it. So would I recommend Christmas at Maple Creek? Absolutely. Really thoroughly enjoyed it. It's not perfect. I can and have, pinpointed areas of improvement where I think maybe the script needed a bit more work. But generally, it's a beautiful Christmas romance with a very inspirational protagonist. Certainly if you're a writer, I think you might find her inspiring. And I really enjoyed it. Not completely predictable, festive enough. Christmas at Maple Creek is definitely worth watching.